So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the aluminum on the door here. I've got the trim all cut out and bent around. I've got the holes pre-drilled in the trim with countersinks on. So what I'm going to do is basically what I've done on the other parts is I'm going to take that marine sealant that I have, put it around the edges, put it around the edges here of the window, kind of circle these holes for the hinges, and get that all ready to go, and then put the sheet on. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. And the idea here is not so much to cement the sheet down, but what I'm trying to do is to limit the water intrusion. So the edges here I have coated in epoxy, and then I've coated in about 1.5 inches with epoxy as well. And so if any water gets past the trim and the seal that's in the trim, I don't want it to migrate down into the center of the panel. Even though I did put waterproofing on the center of the panel, I'm just trying to mitigate that as much as possible. Same goes for these bolt holes. And I'm just going to kind of draw a rectangle here because there is a door latch, and there is a handle that goes through the wall. So I'm not quite sure exactly where it goes, so I'll just put that there. And then I'm just going to put some dots just around. Okay. Go get the sheet. And this sheet has been trimmed up. I ran around it with a router, and of course cut the inside out. The inside hasn't been trimmed yet, but did run around it with a router. I'm just going to press it down. Okay. Now I'm just going to take a couple of clamps and just temporarily clamp here in the center. Basically all I'm doing here is just kind of keeping it from moving when I put the trim on. Okay. And one thing you've got to remember to do, and I forgot to do this on the last one, and ended up with a mess. I had to kind of pull it off and redo it. But you got to remember to pull back this protective film on here before you try and put the trim on. Okay, now that I've got that all peeled back, I'm going to put some sealant along the edges here and get that ready to put on. So here's the trim that's been bent, and now I'm just going to put a bead of sealant down in this area right here, and that's just to kind of seal up the the edge. And it's hard not to make a mess here. Alright, now for the fun part. Trying to get this on without making a total mess of everything. So go ahead and get that working. Loosely here, just to kind of hold that leg in. Made a little bit of boo-boo here. That's just to hold the legs in while I'm doing the top part here. Put a little dab of sealant on each one of the screws. And then I just continue on around and put all the screws in. Last piece of trim going on. I'm sure I laid the bead in there. I'm using pretty short screws here to put this in. I probably should have used something a little bit longer. I don't know why I went with the ½ inch. But so I'm getting some that are stripping out a little bit because I'm going into end grain. But I don't think it's a problem because with this sealant on there, this trim is not going anywhere once it sets up. So. I hope I never have to take it off because it'll be really difficult to get off. Not quite as difficult as if I was using 5200, the marine sealant is called 5200, but this is like 4200, which is supposed to be a medium bond, but I found it to be pretty strong bond. The 5200 is, it would take a nuclear device to make it come off. It's really strong. Okay, now that this is on, I'm just going to let this set up just a little bit, and then I'll come along with some mineral spirits. Anything big like that, I'm going to go ahead and clean off now, but then I'll come along with some mineral spirits and clean up the rest of it. Okay, I'm getting ready to put the windows into the doors, so here's the door all set. I've taken a router and I've trimmed, so it's all this aluminum is flush with the wood here. And so here's the door. Here's the window. Sorry. Now the window has a gasket. Hopefully you can see this. So there's a rubber gasket that goes around, and at this particular point, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and truss that gasket to make the seal, and I'm not going to put any putty or anything around the window. I hope that's not a mistake, but we'll see if it is. So anyway, so I have this gasket around here, and then you can see that there's a groove right here. Well, this groove, when the trim goes over it, there are holes in the trim, and those holes then line up with that groove. Let's see if you can see that. So you can see the groove there, and as I drop the trim over it, you can see the holes line up with the groove. And what you do is there's a self-tapping screw that then goes into that hole and taps into that groove. I've already installed one of these windows, and it worked pretty well. I did have 2 screws where it stripped out, so I'm going to have to come up with some kind of a solution for that. Maybe go get some slightly larger self-tapping screws. But we'll go ahead and give this one a try. Alright, I peeled back the protective film here on the aluminum and wiped it down just with some denatured alcohol, just to get any grease or anything like that that might be on the aluminum. So I just don't want that film to get up underneath the seal here. So I have this laying face down. I found out the easiest way to do it is to drop the door over the window. Alright, there we go. So that's fit in there pretty good. Alright, you can see how that fits in there. And then the trim goes in like that. And then the screws hopefully line up with that slot. Now we'll go ahead and put the self-tapping screws in. You have to lean on them pretty good in order to get them to seat, and it really compresses that gasket. But I think that's what we want. So that's one of the self-tapping screws. They're not very long, and that's I think one of the reasons why I had them strip out on the other one. Just going in, no problem. So I'll just continue working my way around the trim here, putting in these screws, and I'll be back after I'm done. Alright, so there's the window all in, and I'll show it to you on the other side. So that's what she looks like. So now we're going to get ready and mount this on the teardrop.